ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। वन्देऽहं श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभट्टवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थेषु तेने ब्रह्म हृदय आदि कवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। स्वस्ति अस्तु विश्वस्य खल्वः प्रसीदतां ध्यायन्तु भूतानि शिवं मिथो धिया। मनश्च भद्रं भजतादनोक्षजे आवेश्यतां नो मतिरप्यहेतुकी। So we speak today about Shruti, Smriti and Gaudiya Vaishnava scripture. In India, the primary scriptures are called Shruti or the Vedas because they were the first scriptures which were heard from God by Brahma, and then Brahma taught them to his sons and they came down in humanity. So Shrutis were very vast and a lot of things in them, different subject matters. Then later on, towards the end of Dwapara, Vyasadeva, he made 4 divisions of them for the easy understanding and performance of sacrifice. Most of the Shrutis, they deal with performing sacrifice, yajnas, because they are detailed explanations how they have to be executed. So then he made 4 parts. Originally there was only one Veda which was called Yajurveda. Then he made Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samveda and Atharveda. And with each Veda there is an Upaveda, secondary Veda, which is more practical. So that has Ayurveda, Sthapatya Veda, Manurveda, Gandharveda. These are secondary, and then there are 6 Vedangas which are necessary to study. Jyotish, Kal, Chanda, Vyakaran, Nirukta. So those are necessary to understand the Vedas. So previously the students when they went to school, when the Upnayana Samskara was done. That Upnayana means that is the beginning of Vedic study. Without Upnayana, one was not allowed to study the Veda. So first study was the study of the Veda. And originally they used to study the complete Veda. But as the human faculties decreased with time, then they started studying one branch of the Veda. So even up till recently, everybody, the upper three classes, they have to study at least their branch. And everybody knew which branch they belong. So sometimes you hear these titles. Now they are like subtitles. Chaturvedi, Trivedi, right? Divedi, Sukla. Chaturvedi means one who studied all the four Vedas. Trivedi, one who studied three Vedas. Divedi, one who studied two Vedas. Then Shukla, one who studied Shukla Yajurveda. Yajurveda has two divisions, Shukla Yajurveda and Krishna Yajurveda. So that's how they got this. These were like degrees. It's like you have now graduation degree, PhD, etc. So as time passed, then there was a need to make society organized. Originally there was no need because people who were born from Brahma and all these sages, they did not need any injunction how they have to live. They were all learned. But as population increased and there were settings of villages or tribes, then there was need to organize. Then the Smritis came into existence. So Smriti is that which is written on the basis of Veda. They were given by the sages. So primarily the scriptures in India, they can be put in two categories, Shruti and Smriti. Shrutis are the ones which are revealed and they are unchangeable. They remain same, nobody can change them. If they are available in this yuga, whatever is some may be lost, but then they can be revealed later on. They may have been revealed in the past. Even in the next creation, the same Shrutis will remain. But Smritis are written by the sages, so they change from time to time. But they are based on the Vedas. So Smriti include all the Puranas, 18 Puranas, Mahabharata, Ramayana, Samhitas. These are all called Smriti. And the Veda, each Veda has got 4 divisions in it. Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka and Upanishad. Upanishad is the last part which contains the philosophy. Samhita mostly the stutis, the prayers. And Brahmana and Aranyaka, they give the process how to perform the yajna. So this is the primary literature. Then as time passed, especially in Kali Yuga, then there was a need to further give process for people to understand. So then Vedvyas, he has written Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is that which gives the meaning, essence of the Upanishads. So if one wants to understand the philosophy, one used to study Upanishad. And studying Upanishad also takes a lot of time and it is not easy to synthesize everything. So he gave Vedanta Sutra, also called Brahma Sutra, because it speaks about the absolute reality Brahman. And then the third, which is important, is Bhagavad Gita. So these 3 literature, Upanishad, Vedanta Sutra and Bhagavad Gita, these are called Prasthanatrayi. The 3 highway to understand or reach the absolute reality. So every bona fide, every genuine sampradaya, school of philosophy, would study these 3 set of books and give their understanding. So all the major schools, whether it is Advaita Vedanta of Shankaracharya, of Sri Ramanujacharya, Vishishta Advaita, Dvaita of Madhvacharya, Swabhavik Bhedamaiva Pinambhava, Suddhadvaita of Vallabhacharya. They all wrote their explanation on 10 principal Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra and Bhagavad Gita. So this was considered as standard. Besides this, there were other school of philosophy. There was school of Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purmimansa, and then Vedanta. So Vedanta is considered as the supreme school of philosophy. And if you want to study Vedanta, then you have to have knowledge of other schools because In Vedanta, there is refutation of these other schools. And every school has got its own core literature, the basic books, and then there are secondary literature commentaries on that. So if you take Nyaya, then there are Nyaya Sutra written by sage Gautam. And on that Nyaya Sutra there are commentaries. And then there are commentaries on commentaries. Then there are further independent books. So there is so much in every school. And same with Vaisashika. Vaisashika is probably written by Kanada, the sage. So then they have their own literature. Then in Yoga Patanjali Yoga Sutra, there are commentaries and further books. Purnavansa of Japanese Sutras, Purnavansa Sutra, and then commentary, and then so many books on that. Sankhya of Kapila, so there are Sankhya Sutras. So the sutras that gave the whole philosophy in simple aphorisms. So people used to memorize that. Similarly, Vedanta Sutra. So there is so much literature that if you see this, then we look at ourselves that how much we know. Then we realize that actually we know nothing. So people used to spend their lifetime just studying these things. Just as at present there is specialization in every field. Originally there was science, then they divided science into physics and chemistry, right? Then further divisions. Then in physics we have light, magnetism, electricity, thermodynamics, and then further divisions and more. Then we have biology, and then that you have so many other than zoology, anthropology. All types of subjects have come. Originally all this did not exist. And then every field becomes so vast. So same thing in India. They were doing all this research, writing, philosophy. So you can spend all your life, still you will not be able to complete the books. Now primarily there are two schools which are still active. The school of Purmimansa is very little. Still people are doing little bit yajna, fire sacrifice here and there. But they don't know anything how they have to be done. The Brahmana and the priest also doesn't know, and the person who is inviting the host, he doesn't know anything. So it was not easy, it was a very complicated thing. It's like you have to do some very complex operation in the body, like operating the heart. So you need an expert for that. So these yajnas were like that. Now you lit the fires and some mantras loudly on the mic, loudspeaker, everybody listens. No, these things were not allowed for yourselves. Throw something into fire and then you are happy. So this is just for mental satisfaction. There's nothing more than that which comes from this. But it has to be done with the proper vidhi, proper process, which is now people don't know. Nobody is studying. If you ask these people who are doing yajna that do you know Purmimansa, they may not even have heard the name Purmimansa. But to speak of knowing what Purmimansa is. So previously they used to study that. There used to be conferences on this. People will discuss whether this has to be done this way or that way. What should be offered first, which mantra has to be chanted. They were all very detailed. There used to be 16 Ritviks, 16 priests. And one was only to observe that everything is executed properly. His job was only to, like you have an orchestra and there is a conductor. So there used to be one priest, his name was Brahma. So he will only observe. So there were Hotas, Udgata, Brahma, different names for the priests. So therefore now Sankhya, Purmimansa, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, these schools are almost dead. Some people study their philosophy, but their practice is gone because every school had its own practice. These schools were called school of philosophy, and in Sanskrit they are called darshan. Darshan means to see. So the idea was that these philosophies will bring you to the reality. You will realize you have darshan on the reality, realization of the truth. So every school had their theory and their practice. So now practice of these four schools does not exist. Theory some people study, not many. So the two schools which still are alive, which are still functional, the school of yoga and school of Vedanta. So that you know that yoga is still popular, still living, although it is just a part of yoga. What people are doing is not the complete school of yoga, it's just one part, mainly asanas, pranayam. But that is asana and pranayam is only to prepare the body to actually engage in yoga. The real yoga begins later on. It is an external part. It's like you want to cook, so you clean the pots. So cleaning pot is not cooking, but it's needed. You cannot cook without cleaning the pots. So similarly, you cannot engage in yoga without cleaning your body. So that's the purpose of asana and pranayama, preparing. But anyway, the school is still alive. There are people who are seriously also following yoga. And the other one is Vedanta. So in Vedanta, there are 5 major schools. There are some others, but primarily 5 schools. And they can be divided in 2 groups. So one is the school of impersonal reality. That is Advaita Vedanta of Shankaracharya. And the other 4 schools, they are school of personal reality. So Advaita Vedanta proposes that the ultimate reality is impersonal. They call it Brahman. And the way to realize this is to understand that you are one with absolute reality and the material world is an illusion, like a dream. Just as you see a dream at night, but when you wake up, there is nothing which exists. So they say that in the same way, now you are dreaming, but when you will realize Brahman, then this world will cease to exist. Because this is a dream. That is their proposition. So they have 3 levels of reality: Paramarthik Satta, Vyavaharik Satta, and the third is the illusory Satta. So the dream is one existence, dream is one level of reality, and now the wakeful state is the empirical reality. And to realize Brahman, that is the absolute reality. So these are 3 levels of reality for them, but ultimate reality is only Brahman. Because dreams also look real when you are dreaming, then you don't think that it is not real. It's only when you wake up, then you understand. So that reality exists at the dream level. And it's called Pratibhasika Satta. And this is Vyavaharik, what we are now experiencing, empirical reality. And if you realize Brahman, then that will be Paramarthik Satta, absolute reality. So according to them, you have to understand the Paramarthik Satta by getting knowledge, by the study of Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, and Bhagavad Gita. So that is their process. And then the other schools, which are school of Sri Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya, and Markacharya, they say that ultimate reality is a person. And they call Vishnu. Vishnu is the supreme reality. And the way to realize that is through bhakti. So they all propagate the path of bhakti. So these are the 2 primary paths, path of jnana of Advaita Vedanta and path of bhakti of the personal schools. In 15th century, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he appeared in Bengal 1486. And then he propagated a new school, which is the Gaudiya school of Vedanta, called Achintya Bhedabhed. And he gave a new vision And he said that if you want to understand the absolute reality properly, then you have to study Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Purana. He said that Upanishad, Vedanta, and Bhagavad Gita, from that you cannot have the true understanding what really Vyasadeva or what the Vedas want to say. Because things are not stated very clearly in them. The sutras can be interpreted in many different ways. Shankaracharya also bases his philosophy on the same sutra. And then Vaishnavacharya is also basing their philosophy on the same sutra, and everybody sees it differently. He says, but the reality is only one. So how to understand that? So he said that you have to study Bhagavad Purana. So in Bhagavad Purana, in the first canto, 4th chapter, there is a story that Sri Vyasadeva, after he has compiled the 4 Vedas, and he also wrote Mahabharata, then he wrote Vedanta Sutra, and before that he has written the 18 Puranas. So after doing all this work, he still felt dissatisfied in his heart. He felt that his work is not yet complete. Because if you have a mission and you do that, you have completed, and after completed, you still feel that something is missing, means what you really wanted did not happen. So he wrote all these books so that people can understand the supreme reality. But he realized that even after this, it has not become clear. So he did not know what is to be done. So at that time, his teacher, Sri Narada, came to his ashram, Badrik ashram. And to him, Sri Vyasa had put this question that, what is missing in my work? So then Narada, he answered to him that, you have not clearly stated who is absolute and what is the path. You have described many things, especially if you read Mahabharata. If you read the Upanishads, nothing really becomes clear. This word Brahman which is used, we don't find the word Bhagavan hardly anywhere. So how do people even know who is Bhagavan? Then Vedanta Sutra is also just talking about Brahman, Tato Brahman Jigyasa, and that's why they're called Brahma Sutra. So he says that you please write one book to make things clear and speak about Krishna, who is the original Bhagavan. And then he told him his own life story, past life. So after that, Vyasa he sat in Samadhi. Bhakti yogena mansi samyak pranihite male pashyat purusham purnam mayam cha tanapashnim. So he sat in Samadhi, in meditation, through Bhakti Yoga. And with clean heart, he saw the absolute reality. And he saw him as a person, as Krishna. And he also saw his energies. He also saw Jiva who was bound by Maya. He also saw that solution for the bondage is bhakti. And after that only he wrote Śrīmad-Bhāgavata. So Lokasya Janato Vyasa Chakre Satvat Samhita. So this Bhagavad Purana is also called Satvat Samhita, or the book of the Sattvatas, devotees. So it is in this book that he revealed the truth. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, therefore, he taught the principles from Bhagavad Purana, and then he asked his followers, prominent followers, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, to write books to explain the teachings of Bhagavad Purana. So that's why in Gaudiya Sampradaya we do not have commentaries and prasthanatraya. Commentaries on Upanishads, commentaries on Vedanta Sutra, commentary on Bhagavad Gita. It is later on that Gurudev Vidyabhushan, he wrote commentary on Vedanta Sutra much later on. That was 18th century. And that also because a controversy has arisen in Jaipur. where the deity of Lord Govinda from Vrindavan was shifted to Jaipur because of the Muslim attacks, and it was being worshipped by Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So Ramananda Vaishnava, the followers of Ramananda sect, they raised an objection that these Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they are worshipping Radha Krishna, but it is not authentic. And what is their philosophy? So then the king, he called the pujaris and he says, where is your commentary? Because in those days, if you don't have commentary on Prasthantraya, on the Upanishads, on the Vedanta Sutra, on Bhagavad Gita, then you are not considered as an authentic school of philosophy. So in Gaudiya Sampradaya, they did not have it. So then from there, Jaipur, the message was sent to Vrindavan. They said, well, our great acharyas live in Vrindavan, so you have to ask them. So message came from there to Vrindavan that the king is asking for the commentary. Otherwise, he will remove the pujaris and give the worship to someone else. Because if you don't come from a bona fide school, then you don't have the right to worship the deity. Deity cannot be worshipped by anybody like that. So at that time, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was living in Vrindavan. So he was approached. So then he is the one who sent Baldev Vidyabhushan because he personally was old at that time. So he sent Baldev Vidyabhushan and another person, Krishna Sarvamati. So they came and then there was a debate because they wanted that on what authority are you worshipping Radha? Because primarily in India there were temples of Lakshmi Narayan or Lakshmi Vishnu. And if there were temple of Krishna, then the deity was of Rukmani. Now you go to South India and I have not seen any Radha Krishna temple there. There are only Rukmani Krishna. Because Krishna was married to Rukmani. He was not married to Radha. But here Govinda was being worshipped with Radha and the king actually removed Radha from the altar, put it separate. He worshipped separately, but he cannot worship in the main temple. Only Krishna can be worshipped because who is Radha? And which scripture is speaking about it? So then Baldev Vidyabhushan came and there was this debate which went on for a long time. So he proved it from scriptures that worship of Radha is genuine. But now they said, okay, where is your commentary on the Vedanta Sutra? So Baldev Vidyabhushan of course had no commentary at that time. So he said, yes, we have his. He didn't say we don't have commentary. He said, yes, I have commentary. So he says, where is it? So he said, well, give me time, because in those days there were no printed books and people used to memorize books. He said, give me time, I'll write it. He said, okay, I can give you 1 week because it takes time to write by hand. So then at night he was sleeping right in front of the deity in the courtyard and he was in great anxiety. But we actually have no commentary. And now what am I going to do? Because I said we have. And if we don't present commentary, then we will be thrown out of this temple. So then Krishna, Govinda Dev himself appeared to him in his dream and he said, don't worry, you start writing and just write it and I will dictate it. So then Baldev Vidyabhushan he wrote, and therefore his commentary is called Govind Bhashya. It's like Ramanujacharya's commentary is called Sri Bhasya. Madhvacharya's commentary is called Purnapabhya Bhasya. So his commentary is called Govind Bhashya because Govind himself dictated it. He has written it himself at the end of commentary. So then he presented the commentary and then they have to accept it. So that's how the worship of Radha Govinda Dev was protected and the Gaudiya Vaishnavas continued to worship. Otherwise the right would have been forfeited. So in our school otherwise we study Bhagavata. So our acharyas, they wrote commentaries on Bhagavatam. Sanatana Goswami was the first one to write commentary on the 10th canto. It is called Dasam Tippani or Vaishnava Toshani. And then Jiva Goswami wrote Ram Sandarbha. And Baldev Vidyabhushan also wrote commentary. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also wrote Sarath Darshan commentary. And Jiva Goswami, he wrote the Sandarbhas to give the systematic philosophy of Bhagavatam. So he wrote 6 books which are called Tattva Sandarbha, Bhagavat Sandarbha, Paramatma Sandarbha, Krishna Sandarbha, Bhakti Sandarbha, and Priti Sandarbha. And in these 6 books, he explains the philosophy of Gaudiya school in a very systematic manner based on Bhagavatam. So therefore he called these 6 books Bhagavat Sandarbha because it's based on Bhagavatam. Popularly they are called Shat Sandarbha. Shat means 6 because there are 6 books. So he takes Bhagavatam. In the beginning of Tattva Sandarbha, he proves that why Bhagavatam has to be the basis of understanding the reality. So he says that no human mind can approach absolute reality because our senses are limited. They can fall into illusion. People have also tendency to deceive even themselves, what to speak of deceiving others. So he says because of these things, human mind, human senses cannot have realization of the absolute. Therefore, we have to depend on some other source for knowledge of the absolute. And that other source is Veda, because Veda is beyond these defects. Veda is aparushaya, not written by any human being, therefore it is free from the human defects. Whatever human beings will do or discover, this will be imperfect because human beings themselves are not perfect. Therefore, he says that only Veda can give that. Then he says that Veda is difficult to understand and they are not available in their complete form. What is available now is only about 7%. Because it was never written, people used to memorize and then pass it on. And as time passed, people lost interest in studying and book also got lost. So then he says that since it is not possible to understand the reality from the Vedas, we go to Purana. Because Puranas are called fifth Vedam. They have the same author and same source. And Puranas are 18, so which one to follow? So he says that Puranas are divided into 3 groups of Sattvic Purana, Rajasic Purana and Tamasic Purana. Therefore, Sattvic Purana only can give knowledge of the absolute because Rajasic and Tamasic cannot give knowledge. Because you cannot get proper knowledge in Rajas and Tamas. So then he narrows down it to Sattvic Puranas. Then he says in the Sattvic Puranas also, it is only the Bhagavat Purana which gives proper knowledge because it is only Bhagavat Purana which has got commentaries on it and explanation. And Bhagavat Purana is also the commentary of Vedanta Sutra, Arthoyam Brahma Sutranam, Bharata Artha Vinirnaya, and it carries the meaning of Mahabharata. And Gayatri Bhasya Rupa also, it also gives commentary of Gayatri Mantra. Therefore, it is Bhagavat Purana which is most suitable because it has the meaning of Vedanta Sutra. It is explanation of Vedanta Sutra. It is also explanation of Gayatri Mantra, which is the essence of Vedas. And it also has the meaning of Mahabharata. So then he proposes that we should study only Bhagavatam. And thus he starts an analysis of Bhagavatam. So what is the subject matter of Bhagavatam? How do we know this? Because it has so many stories. So he says that before the book was written, Vyasadeva, he sat in Samadhi and he had a realization, direct vision, intuitive. And then only he wrote the book. So whatever he saw, that will be explained in this book. So he says, let's analyze his experience. So he analyzes the experience, Bhakti Yogena Mansi Samyak Pranayata. These 4 verses he analyzes. And from this he concludes few things which are very clearly. Number 1, that absolute reality is a person. is not impersonal. Number two, the absolute reality has got energy, is not important because Brahman has no energy. So he has got form, qualities and energy. Number three, the Jiva is not same as the absolute reality. But Jiva is conditioned by Maya, absolute reality is not conditioned by Maya. Number four, Maya is also real and it is energy of that absolute reality. So unlike Advaita Vedanta where they say Maya is an illusion, no, Maya is not an illusion, it creates illusion, but Maya herself is real. And Jiva are those who are conditioned by Maya. And then next one is this conditioning of Jiva can be removed by Bhakti. So therefore the solution is in Bhakti. So he thus comes to the conclusion that the essence of the Vedas, Vedanta Sutra and everything which is depicted in Bhagavatam also, there are three essence which he calls as Sambandha, Videya and Prayojana. And it is to explain these three topics of Sambandha, Videya and Prayojana that he wrote these 6 books. So Sambandha is that which explains relationship. How are we related to God, how the material world is related to God. That is Sambandha. And this is described in the first 4 books, Tattva Sandarbha, Bhagavad Sandarbha, Paramatma Sandarbha and Krishna Sandarbha. And Avideya is the process to have this knowledge. How do we realize this relation? That is Abhideya, the process. So that is Bhakti Yoga and for that he wrote Bhakti Sandarbha. And what do we achieve from this realization? That is called Priyojana or the purpose or the goal, and that is Priti, Prema or love. And for this he wrote Priti Sandarbha. So this is how he presented the reality in these 6 books. Then he starts. So in the beginning, there are basically 2 verses which are very important. One is Vadanti tat tatudas tattam is jnana vadvam brahmeti paramatmati bhagavaniti shabdati. That absolute reality is non-dual consciousness. All the knowers of truth agree to that. And it is known by 3 names, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. So this is one verse and therefore on the basis of this he has Tattva Sandarbha, Bhagavad Sandarbha and Paramatma Sandarbha. And the other ones is Ete Chans Kalapumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Soham Indrarir Vyakulam Lokam Bridayanti Yuge Yuge. So Krishna is not an avatar of Vishnu as many Indians think, but he is Swam Bhagavan. He is the source of all avatars, therefore he is called Avatari, not Avatara. So for that he wrote Krishna Sandarbha. And the process to realize is Bhakti that we described in Bhagavatam. Bhakti Yogaina Manse and Bhakti Utpadyate Punsam Soka Moha Bhayapaha. So then he continues analyzing like this. So this is how he presents the truth. In Bhagavad Sandarbha he explains who is Bhagavan, what are his qualities, where does he live, what is his form, his various energies, potencies. So this is how described in Bhagavad Sandarbha. And then Paramatma Sandarbha describes about Paramatma because Paramatma is the one who is in charge of the material nature. Bhagavan does not participate in maintenance of this material world. That is done by Paramatma, which is a manifestation of Bhagavan. So there are 3 Paramatmas. There is Mahavishnu, he is also called Karnodakshay Vishnu. Then there is Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and then there is Kshirodakshay Vishnu. So Mahavishnu is the Paramatma of the super soul of the whole material creation, which includes unlimited Brahmandas, universes. And Garbhodakshay Vishnu is the Paramatma for one universe. The universe has one Paramatma. He looks after that particular universe. So that is Garbhodakshay Vishnu. And the third one is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu who manifests as Paramatma in everybody's heart. So he is Paramatma of each individual. So although all these three Paramatma are one only, but they manifest in three different ways. Antaryami. Antaryami is another name for Paramatma. So that is Paramatma. So Paramatma rules over material nature and the conditioned living beings. In this material world there is material nature and the conditioned living beings. So it's all mixture of matter and spirit. And God is one who supports and maintains it. So this is describing Paramatma Sandarbha. When he says that there are two types of jivas. Jiva means conditioned Atma. So there are Nitya Baddha and Nitya Mukta. The jivas who exist in this material world, they are eternally conditioned. There was never a beginning when they came into condition. This is what is very difficult to understand because most of us we think that we did something and then we fell into the material world. That no fall down from above. So this is anadi, beginningless. In Bhagavad Gita also Krishna says Prakriti Purusavacha Vidhi Anado Bhavati. That you should know that Prakriti and Purusha, the living being, both are anadi, which also means that their combination is anadi, no beginning. Although beginningless, the bondage is beginningless, conditioning is beginningless, it can come to an end by performing bhakti. So that is what is being described. Then there are Nitya Mukta, the living beings who are in the Vaikuntha, in the spiritual abode. They have never become conditioned, they never have come to the material world, they will never come. They eternally live there. They are ever liberated. It's like we have never been there, they have never been here. So they live there eternally and we live here. But we can go there if we decide. Choice is yours. So that is the free will, that is the only free will. When people speak of free will, the will is only this much that you can choose either to live in the material world or decide to give it up and go to the spiritual world. All other choices which you make don't have much meaning because you hang around here in the material world. So we think we have big freedom, but your freedom is that you are inside a prison and then you can go from one room to another room. But you remain in the prison, then you think I am free. So real freedom is to get out from the prison. And for that you have to do bhakti yoga. If you don't do bhakti yoga, then you remain in the prison. Sometimes you are in the first class prison, sometimes middle class prison, sometimes in the third class prison. So in third class prison you don't get rotis and gulab jamun to eat. Not allowed. If you go to first class prison, then you get first class food. If you go to the middle class prison, you get middle class food. If you go to third class prison, you get third class food. So choice is this much, that you can move within the prison, you cannot get out. Therefore Krishna says, Devi yasa gunamayi mama maya durapteya mame ve prapadyante maya metam tarampite. He says this prison called Maya is made of three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Sattva is first class, Rajas second class, Tamas third class. So he says no one can cross it. Nobody can get out of the prison, the walls are very high. And then there are dogs. If you try to jump over the wall, the dog will come and catch your leg, tear you apart. So you remain in the prison. No possibility of getting out. Only he says, Mameviya prapadyante maya mitantarantite. If you surrender to Krishna, then you can get out of the prison. Otherwise not possible. Simple. Therefore he says, Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraj. So this is the simple philosophy. This is all Vedic literature. It's only saying this much. The purpose of all the Vedas is to know Krishna. Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedya. The purpose of all the Vedas is to know Krishna. So this is simple. There is no complication. There is God. He is called Krishna. We are here inside the prison. We are called Jiva. The goal of life is to go from here to Krishna. And the train to catch, the train is called Bhakti Yoga. No ticket required. Anybody can jump in the train. But jumping you have to do. Nobody is going to lift you up and put you in the train. That's nobody. You have to make the choice. Well, I want this train which takes you to Krishna, or I want another train which moves around in the prison. So as long as you are living, then you have the choice. And if you don't choose now when you are living, then death comes, then there is no choice. Then the karma comes. Then karma Prabhu is waiting. And then he will put you in another prison. Now you are in one type of prison. Then after death, he changed the room. You have lived in this room for a long time. Then he puts you in another room. So you keep on changing rooms according to the karma. So that is the basic simple gist of the scriptures of India.